Check, and we're live, guys. Welcome to another episode of Good Morning Crypto, only here on Ivan Tech. Yes, guys, PulseChainu is live. Right now, the crypto community has a whole new sandbox to play in. We have a whole new industry to build on Pulse. Now, as you know, Bitcoin right now is dumping slightly. We do see Bitcoin at 26.8. Bitcoin right now is taking a hit. As you know, our target is 23. We are breaking down from the head and shoulders, and the target is 23. But let's speak about something very important, namely, how is the launch of Hex gonna affect the altcoin market overall? Can we really see an altcoin season started? Because for the first time, we have the energy in the Hex community being now able to go nuts on Pulse. So Pulse is launching right now, it's live right now. Hex community now can build things. They can now funnel their energy into building and creating ecosystems. And that's going to be so interesting to follow, and that's what we're going to discuss. And the questions we're gonna focus on are the following. Number one, how much did the sacrificers make? Number two, why is Hex dumping on ETH? As you can see, if you go to crypto bubbles, Hex is down 33% today. Why is it so? And we're also going to be discussing PulseX. I will show you the exchange, which is PulseX, the centralized exchange for Pulse. We're going to be speaking about what this means right here, this dollar amount, and much, much more. If you like this kind of content, guys, if you want to be informed, if you like staying informed, learning about new ecosystems such as Pulse, if you are in Pulse or in Hex, smash up the like, subscribe to the channel, and let's get going as soon as possible. Write in the comment section, by the way, write in the comment section if you hold Hex or Pulse, if you sacrifice or not. Let's discuss what is happening. First and foremost, let's state the basics. The basics is that right now we will have two separate Hex. So one Hex is on ETH, okay? Let's write it down so that we remember it. This is something that is getting a bit convoluted if you don't write it down. So Hex on ETH is no longer called Hex, guys. So when you look at people discussing Hex on ETH, it's no longer called Hex. It is now eHex, okay? And eHex is not gonna be one-to-one interchangeable with Hex on PulseChainu, okay? So basically, you have two separate versions: one Hex on ETH and another one which is Hex on Pulse. So Hex on Pulse is called Hex. This is the real Hex. This is like the Hex, okay? It is sometimes called P-Hex also, because it's on PulseChainu. But I know Richard wants it to be called Hex. So whenever the community will say Hex from now on, they are gonna refer to Hex on Pulse. And if someone says P-Hex, they also mean Hex on Pulse. And the price of Hex on Pulse will not be the same as Hex on ETH, okay? So there are two different coins. Probably they will not have the same price. I mean, obviously it's game theory here, but is it going to be the same price as on ETH? Probably not, or I think not, because there are two different assets. They may still move in the same direction. So as you know, there is this discussion about Hart's law, which basically states that if two assets, like for example eHex and Hex, if you have a trading pair, eHex versus Hex, for example on PulseX, then if one of them moons in dollar terms, the other will moon as well, because they are denominated in each other. So if one of them goes up in dollar amounts and the ratio is the same between them, then the other also goes up. So this is the basics you need to know about that. Hex is there are now two Hex, and what's interesting is that I just was on a stream with a bunch of Hexicans and people really into this. And they say, okay, which is still something that I'm thinking about and internalizing. But according to them, it is likely that both Hex on ETH and Hex on Pulse gonna have high price, okay? That the price performance of both is gonna be good. That there's going to be interest, basically. What they said more correctly is that there's going to be interest in both. and that Richard Hart said that he wants to have high price of Hex on all chains. Now, to me, I don't know if that makes sense to me. Okay, let's see how it's gonna happen. Like, my spontaneous way of thinking about this is that e-hex is gonna be like the old hex, which is not as relevant anymore. But who the hell knows? Who the hell knows? What you need to know is that if you have hex on ETH, you also now have hex on Pulse. So if this is for you to think about yourself. Like, do you think that e-hex and hex, what kind of ratio there's going to be? I think it's super fascinating. I don't know. My initial reaction would be that one of them will be like the hex and the other one kind of fades away, like Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash or ETH and Ethereum Classic. But this is not what hex community says to me. So I'm here as an observer, you can say, as an observer of this ecosystem of hex. So they probably know better, but at the end of the day, let's see. I mean, sometimes if things don't make sense to me, I just have to sit here and see how it plays out. But anyway, so you have e-hex and the hex. If you hold hex on ETH, you now have automatically, you get this, okay? So you get as many coins as you had on ETH, now you have them on Pulse, okay? So if you had 100 coins, hex coins on ETH, now you have also 100 on Pulse, okay? So this is like a normal fork. The question is, how do you see them? So let's go to the next question. How do you see your hex on Pulse? Well, if you go to scan.pulsechain.com, you see the block explorer. And you can search your address here and you can check. The problem is that you will not see them today because they're still building the database for this block explorer. So this block explorer does not show the correct balances. So that's why you probably will have to wait until tomorrow before you see all your tokens and everything from ETH, because as you know, you get all the forks of all tokens. So you get hex if you had some Uniswap token, like any ERC20, you now have a copy of it on Pulse, and let's see if they have any value. But you can tomorrow, like when this warning, let me refresh. But when this warning disappears, that's when this block explorer fully works, and that's when you can see the balances. So that's about hex and e-hex. I hope that makes sense. Let's move on to the next question, which is about how much money did you make if you are a sacrificer? And it's impossible to know because right now we can only know it partially, but right now e-hex has a USD price. So this is what you see on crypto bubbles, for example, that it's the price now is this. So e-hex has a USDC price of this much.
Nejste si jistí ohledně zdraví vašich zubů? Elmex vám pomůže díky účinné vědě, ve spolupráci s odborníky na zubní péči, abyste měli jistotu zdravých zubů. Sáhněte po jistotě. Zvolte Elmex.
Now, remember, you have also hex on Pulse, and hex on Pulse does not have USD price. So why is it important? Because as you know, people have sacrificed to get Pulse. Okay, so for example, I sacrificed to get Pulse, and now I want to, of course, know, did I get more money back, or like what is the result? Now Pulse doesn't have a USD price because it's only trading on PulseX with these trading pairs. Basically, you can trade from Pulse to Hex or from Pulse to this incentive token, which I will explain also, and to PulseX. So Pulse itself does not have a USD price. It will soon, because there is a bridge coming within 48 hours that will bridge ETH and the stable coins from ETH to Pulse. Okay, so soon there's going to be a USD price, but already right now, if we're thinking how much money did we make on Pulse, we can make some assumptions. We don't know the price of Pulse in dollars directly. Let me write it down so we follow the logic together here. So this is how it is. The price of PLS in USD is unknown. We don't know it. But the price of PLS in Hex is, we know it, because if you go to PulseX, you see that one Pulse chain PLS is worth this many hex tokens. So we know this, that, let me see if I can change the color. Ah, man, okay, anyway. So the price of PLS in hex, not on hex, in hex and in USD is this, okay? Now, the price, the price of hex in USD is unknown, we don't know it. But the price of EHEX in USD is known. So, as you remember, the price of EHEX is known. It is this. Where is it? Didn't I write it? Oh yeah, it's here. Sorry, yes, it's up here. So this is the data we have. That this is the price of EHEX. We don't know the price of hex on Pulse, but we can assume. So if we assume, let's say we assume that there is some correlation between price of hex on ETH and PulseChain. And I mean, in my mind, price on Pulse should be higher than price on ETH, because hex on Pulse is like the native hex. It's like the hex now, and EHEX is like a copy of it on ETH. And let's see how the game theory plays out. But in my mind, like my assumption, let's have scientific approach here and clarify assumptions. Hex on Pulse should be more expensive than hex on ETH. I don't know if this assumption is good. I think it's good. Let me know in the comments if you agree. But I assume that hex on Pulse will be more than hex on ETH, and therefore more expensive than this price right here, 0.0337 USD, okay? Because that's the price of hex on ETH. So given all of this, like, what the hell is the result, okay? Based on assumptions above, PLS is at least how many dollars? Well, you know how many hex one PLS is. It is this. And then if we just assume that the lowest price of hex is this, because that's how much a EHEX is worth, then let's see, how much is this? 0. Let me just copy this. Bam, bam, bam. It is this. Okay. Now, if I compare to my sacrifice price, let me write it here. And this is different for different people, depending if you sacrifice to the charity or what you sacrifice to. And by the way, write your sacrifice price in the comment section. So let's see. So my sac price is 0.0001. Okay. So based on the simple calculation with the simple assumptions, I mean, without having a bridge, without knowing anything for certain, I'm up 3x based on this assumption, because this is my sacrifice price. This is the price, the current market price of Pulse measured in hex on Pulse, but we don't know the price of dollars of hex on Pulse. We can only assume there's going to be more than the price of EHEX on ETH, which is right now this. So that's why it should be at least a 3x, but who the hell knows? Okay, it's early on. Now, finally, many people are asking, like, what is this dollar? This dollar number right here is not correct. So ignore it. I think Brett said it as well, that it's not correct. So ignore it. This is, I think they copied the code base from Uniswap, and Uniswap looks at DAI contract. But DAI contract is not correct. Like USDC, all the stablecoin contracts, they're just copies. They don't have $1 value for each coin. So that's something to keep in mind. So on that note, this is some general information about the launch. I hope it makes sense. Listen, I hope you learned something. I hope you understand a bit more of what the hell is happening. But one thing is for certain, it's new territory. Let's see. to me, it doesn't really make sense that both Hex and eHex is gonna have value, but let's be humble. Let's see what else happens. Let's just observe. Tomorrow we should have way more clarity, and the biggest clarity is gonna come when there is actually a bridge from ETH to Pulse. So you can take real stable coins from ETH to Pulse. You can take ETH from ETH to Pulse, and you can have trading happening in more of a real way where you have connection to markets, to overall markets. So that's when we're gonna know exactly the price of Hex and exactly the price of Pulse in ETH, which then will tell us the real dollar value. Now, can this start in altcoin season? I do think that it can. If it is the case that we see a lot of projects starting on Pulse and mooning and doing well, it's definitely a good sign for altcoin season, because the more people do well in alts, the more other people want to do well, the more coins we have, the more momentum we have. So it definitely can happen. But at the same time, you know that right now it's a sideways year for Bitcoin. Right now we are just going sideways, and until the halving, I don't have a lot of expectation for this market in terms of Bitcoin. But in terms of alts, absolutely, absolutely. There's going to be so much. And of course, we're going to add Pulse to Morales Money. It's coming next week. Once we have the bridge working, we can add it. That's when we can. So we need the bridge, and the bridge is gonna come within the next 48 hours, as far as I know. On that note, guys, hope you enjoyed. Smash up the like. Do it right now. See you all tomorrow, live as always. Have a good day and goodbye, guys. Goodbye, goodbye, goodbye.